Okay, a formal welcome to everybody. Very, very formal welcome. I am Tim Grimes. It's January, it's 2022, and this is our Zoom meeting seminar thingy for right now. So I thought that we would just spend a few minutes doing a meditation like we often do. And if you just would like to get comfortable in whatever way is best for you, um, just relax, whether that involves closing your eyes or if it involves lying down, if it involves um, just relaxing your body in whatever way you need to. So just relax in whatever way suits you. And if you're familiar with my general approach when we do these type of meditations, this is all about relaxing just for the sake of relaxing. We're not trying to do anything right now. We're not trying to get somewhere. We're not trying to manifest anything. So often we are trying to change something about ourselves. And what we're doing right now is all about not changing anything. So you might feel very relaxed just being here doing this because there's nothing you have to do. Or your mind might be running. You might feel anxious. You might feel like this is a waste of time. You might feel like you feel stress in your body. You might be thinking about what you have to do later today or tonight. What do you have to do tomorrow? You might be thinking of something seemingly random, totally unrelated to right now. And all that's fine too. This is just about this. Because there's a lot of depth here when we just cut out all the bullshit and don't try to change anything. And for some reason, which I don't pretend to know the reason, we battle and fight against this. We don't like to allow for this just to be here and to be okay with it. But this is okay. And it's actually more than okay if we actually experience it and look at it. We realize there's nothing wrong with us. We realize that there's nothing we have to do right now except what we're doing. So these thoughts might be saying, oh, I should be doing something different than this. Your mind might be worried about something it has to do. You might be thinking about something seemingly unrelated. Your body might feel uncomfortable for whatever reason. And that's okay. On a recent episode of my podcast, I mentioned Lester Levinson. And Lester has a lot of great lines speaking about this. And one of his lines, I wrote it down. It's something you probably heard before. I don't know, it's not an original line that he coined probably, but it's pertinent to this, to what we're talking about. He said, "It takes no effort to be yourself." It takes no effort to be yourself. And he capitalized the S in self. And when you capitalize the S in self, it's synonymous with God. It takes no effort to be God. And someone like Lester would say that all your effort, all that stress that you feel, that we feel, is pretending to not be yourself, pretending not to be God. Because to be you takes no effort. We're doing it right now. And we're always doing it. But we like to superimpose a lot of effort and a lot of stories on doing it. And that can make things very stressful. And I found in my own life that when you just step back, the way we're doing right now, it's easier. It's easier and it feels better. And we can all do this. We can take time each day or whenever we want to step back more. Because it's all an illusion anyway. Because you are yourself no matter what, whether you're pretending not to be or not. And when I say self, I mean capital S self, meaning God. You are God. You are the one you have been seeking. Without thinking about it, you already are it. Neville liked to quote, I think, Pascal, who said, nearness implies separation. No separation. No problem. So this is here for the taking. Whenever we want it. And we fight against it and are stupid about it and blah, blah, da, 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 da. And guess what? That's all okay as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't matter. But when you don't fight against it, this is what you get. And if you're on this call tonight, you understand that already, because you wouldn't be here, I don't think, if you didn't understand that. So this goes way beyond any type of technique or approach we could use just to get something externally, because you don't need to get yourself, because you are yourself. And then from there, different things happen. And if you do want a specific thing, it's probably easier to get it from here than the other way, than doing it backwards. Because this is about not pretending and seeing that there's nothing wrong with you and that what you are is God. And you always have been. And so there's nothing you have to do, nothing to worry about. And if you want to, you can consider this over the coming days and weeks, if this suits you, this approach, this description. But it's just a description or an approach of something that's been said 1,000 different ways by 1,000 different people, thousands of different people. But I thought that was pretty good the way Lester said it. It takes no effort to be yourself. He said it takes tremendous effort to pretend not to be yourself, to pretend not to be God. So when we do these Zoom meetings, I know it's time to end the meditation usually when I don't feel like having the Zoom meeting anymore. And we've reached that time. So now we can have the Zoom meeting if we want, or not. We can just be quiet. If you have any questions, and they don't have to make sense, they can be nonsensical. You can ask them now. You can type them in, or you can unmute yourself if you're muted and just ask them. And I will give you my response.
Hi, Tim. It's Lee here.
Hey, Lee, how are you? Good to see you.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you.
Glad you can make it.
Oh, yeah. After our email back and forth,
Yes.
I got the timing wrong. Well, I'm glad you said it doesn't have to make sense, because I don't know if this will make sense, but I've been efforting, not efforting.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I stop that?
That's what we all do. You know, I think if you go down this this approach, it's very common. It's the most common mistake probably that we make generally. If we try to be effortless, how do you try to be effortless? You don't, right? Then what are you doing? So how do you stop doing that as much? First of all, you don't beat yourself up over it. And then you perhaps do like what we were talking about, what I mentioned in the podcast, that Richard Dott's approach is a very good one, for instance, where you just take time each day. You decide, I'm going to do this, say, he says in that book, 3 times a day for 15 minutes, but it could also be for a half an hour in the morning and then a half an hour at night, or 10 minutes every 3 or 4 hours, or whatever it is. Take an allotted time and then just sit and do nothing, like we just did. Or you could be walking and doing, but something, usually it's like a slow down type thing, so sitting or something kind of passive. And then recognize that you're you and you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that's a tricky part.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's why like Emmett Fox says, like, take your mind off the problem, whatever it is, and just, he says, focus on God, but also just be with God and just be God. So how is it tricky? How can it be tricky to be giving effort or not giving effort if you're God? The same thing. So our mind might be saying, oh, I'm giving effort. I'm trying too hard. I'm trying. Why am I trying? I'm over analyzing all this. You just sit, is there anything happening right now? No, there's nothing happening. So that effortlessness might sometimes look, or might often look, like you're sitting, you're doing nothing, quote unquote, right? You're one with God. you are God, and all this shit's coming up in your head saying about, I'm giving effort, what am I doing? And by sitting, you know, as a consistently, meaning a couple times a day or every day, at least once or twice, inevitably all that stuff that comes up, it's not going to happen each time you sit. It's going to change, you know? So it's going to like ground you a little bit. It's going to ground you when you feel like you're giving effort to be like, it doesn't, this is all about transcending effort or non-effort, right? In a way, that's another way of looking at it, right? Because that's why I say don't beat yourself up, because then it's like a push and pull thing. And it's like, you know, screw the pushing, screw the pulling, just go above it. That's again, that why that Emmett Fox golden key line's so good. It's like, don't just, you rise above the problem, because there is no, if you're God, there's no problem. There's no solution. There's nothing. Does that add up a little bit or not add up? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that you were able to make it today with the time difference. All right. So Bear, I saw that you raised your hand, and then I've got a chat. Kalia, awesome. Thank you. All right. So yeah, Bear, do you have a question?
I do.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
I communicated with you via email, Steve McKenzie. I'm so just introducing myself. We had a couple exchanges.
Okay. All right. Excellent, Steve. Excellent. Perfect. Great.
A comment and a couple of questions. The meditation was great. I really liked it. There's something about what does God have to do to be themselves? Nothing just really hit home. Like, wow. Yeah, that's. So I recently had my question is, if you could, I'm just curious, what has you doing these sessions? What is you're donating your time generously. What is your hope that happens in each session? Do you have a larger hope of what you're wanting to accomplish with these, or is this just something you really love to do? And so you do it. Actually, why don't you answer that, and then I'll give you my other question.
Sure. I don't have a long answer for that. I've never been the type of person to look at what I do really from like a sound traditional business model. Let's put it that way. I'm, occasionally people throw the word entrepreneur at me and stuff like that, because I have a lot of books, and I'm always like taken aback when I hear that. Nothing against entrepreneurs, I guess, but I'm not one at all when it comes to this stuff. So no, I have no plan. Like I like to share this information in different ways. So I love writing about this material, obviously, and I like working with people one-on-one. I really like that because there's a lot of intimacy there. And this podcast, since I started doing that in October, that's another form that's really enjoyable to communicate these ideas, because it's personal and people get to hear your voice and they get used to hearing your voice. So that's another great mode of exchanging these ideas with people. But when we do like a meeting like this, it's something, quite honestly, that I like to do it, and part of me wants to do it more often. It always is good when we have a meeting like this, because it's a meeting of minds, and in a way it actually is like a mastermind or something like that. That's another term I dislike, but there's a ton of truth to this mastermind component, and getting like-minded people together in a setting like this, and we just we bounce ideas off of each other. So this is it's a good format, and whenever I have one of these, I'm like, oh, I should do this more often. And then it just up to this point, it seems like other things take precedence over it. but yeah, it just felt like time to do it. We haven't had one of these since August. So yeah.
Cool,
What was,
thanks.
what was your other question?
Recently, so I've been used, being a student of the law of attraction for years and years, I've gotten used to saying, I manifested. You know, oh, or you know, boy, I'd really like to manifest this, or I manifested that. I realized one day, I have never manifested anything. At least as far as I can tell, I can't manifest shit, right? Doesn't mean stuff doesn't appear, right, in my life. But the notion of me manifesting something all of a sudden seems uh, like a ludicrous statement. And I just would love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, yeah, you finally figured that out, Steve, or, you know, or just what that means to you, because I imagine a lot of, I mean, a lot of people, maybe even people here on the, you know, we speak like that, right? How can I manifest something? And I'm imagining there's something valuable to realizing, wait a minute, you're, you know, it's which I are we speaking about, right? Is it the I that's the God, or is the I that's, you know, that's part of what we're dealing with, is which I do I get confused is doing the manifesting. But anyway, I'm imagining there's a lot of us even on this call that are used to using that. Well, I need to manifest them. And I imagine there's a lot of benefit if we discussed, or if you, I'd like to hear what you have to say about that notion of where I fits in the whole manifesting. I made that longer than I thought I wanted to, but
No, no, everything you said made total sense. I'm just trying to think about how to give my answer in the most fluid way. I think the first thing I would say is that there's no hard and fast rules. And one thing I've enjoyed about doing the podcast is I just get to say that over and over to people, is there's no one set way that this works. I really relate to what you're saying. To bring Lester back into it, you know, Lester always said that, you know, he said, you know, whenever I had to get I out of the way and I can manifest whatever I wanted, but I, Lester, can never manifest anything. And if, you know, those of you on the call who know Lester's story, that probably has some real resonance to it, because Lester, you know, you would say manifested some pretty incredible things. He has some pretty incredible stories, but he said, I always have to get out of the way in order for it to happen. And in my own life, generally speaking, for good things to happen to me, and a lot of good things have happened to me, and especially since I found out about these principles, I usually have to take a step back. When I, Tim, am trying to do something and manifest something, it's a lot harder. It feels a lot more forced, and it just feels like it's like, so to give an example, it's like if I'm doing something like that where I'm trying hard to manifest something, and this is subtle subconscious stuff that I'm kind of playing up to make it seem more dramatic. But like it might involve like me writing down an affirmation 10 or 20 times, the same affirmation every day for weeks or months. And then maybe that happens. Maybe it's a certain amount of money. Maybe it has something to do with, you know, a loved one, or, you know, some kind of development in my life. But my success rate doing that is not that good, quite frankly. And it also feels like a pain in the ass. It's not a technique where I'm like, oh, I want to keep on writing this down for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? And that's why, as much as I love Kuwait, I feel like standard affirmations just don't work well long term for a lot of people for this reason, like where it's like it feels too much like I am involved. Now, there are, for some people, you can get I involved and get energetically behind I. Like, I'm going to do something, I'm doing it. And it delves much more into what we associate with like self-improvement and self-development and self-help than law of attraction stuff when we do that a lot of the time. But it's the same type of principles working, but it involves, generally speaking, a lot more effort. And I've always related more to like when you get out of the way. And even people like Neville and Joseph Murphy, where, people are talking about manifesting specific things, it's more like what's going on underneath that's interesting. And that's always what like Neville and Joseph Murphy are trying to teach, is that what's going on underneath is not this small I. It is this big I that is basically God or your imagination, right? That's letting it happen. And it's like a holistic experience where little I, as you were saying, Steve, is not, it's just little I is just there, you know? To give one more Lester line, Lester also described these like, it's kind of like you're just floating around and people are there just doing their thing, and they want to serve you, or things want to serve you because you're lined up with them in this very harmonious way. Because you, small you, have gotten out of the way, and larger you, which is more in harmony with everything, in flow with everything, is able then to navigate the world in a more just easier way. And that comes back to, I feel good right now, so does that give you a little bit more of a idea as to kind of different approaches to it?
Yeah, and it reminds me of, makes me realize when I is trying to manifest something, I is always trying to prove something or fill a need. And I've found that never works. But when I'm wanting to manifest something to express who I am, I'm abundance, and I'm going to express that, and the world will express that. Then it's a lot easier to have things manifest when I'm expressing what I already believe to be true, rather than trying to prove to the little I that he's worthy or secure, or
Right. Because it's what you really are.
right.
And what you really are is not I.
Right.
That's what's crazy about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Of course. Thank you. Kalia, I think that you raised your hand.
Yes, I did.
Good to talk to you. Good to hear your voice.
It's good to hear you too. First off, I want to say thank you so much. I'm glad that you got this seminar going. You're like one of the best explainers with this stuff. I'm on this call for a reason. And thank you other guys for the questions. And I just want to let you know what's been going on. So like I was reading Neville's story yesterday. Like I'm just, and I've told you this before, I'm just so obsessed with Neville's story about how he was in New York City, and I can't believe I can't remember his name.
Abdullah.
Abdullah. He pretty much just helped Neville to just remain faithful to his imagination. And I just been like it's like I'm just so obsessed with that, and I just want to know like your thoughts on that. Like I want to know, what do you like, how could you explain that situation, like for him to just be oblivious to the outside judgments and to just remain faithful to being in Barbados?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a famous story at this point. Did you listen to that podcast episode I did where I referenced that story?
No, I haven't.
Definitely check that out.
Okay.
I believe it's called "Come Out of the Graveyard" is the title of it.
Okay.
And it's I speak a little bit about that story.
All right, I'll check it out.
But so that's the first thing, just in terms of, a little more context of my answer. What I would say is that there's a lot of stories like that. Okay. Like that story is almost like mythical. And so I almost become like leery of stories that are that mythical, not that I doubt it at all whatsoever. But what's interesting is there's not actually a lot of details that I've read about that story in terms of the actual inner dynamic of what happened.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is part of your question. It's like what actually went on there, because it's like, from what I know, like he was already studying with Abdullah for years before
Yeah.
this happened, right? And he was very religious. Neville was, very much into esoteric stuff, for years before this happened.
Mhm.
So clearly this Barbados event stoked something. And all I would say is that this is not a unique story, though. I mean, he tells it very dramatically, and it's dramatic. But like, for instance, we're talking about Lester Levinson a lot tonight. Don't read too much into that. But like Lester Levinson, if you read No Attachments, No Aversions, he's got stories that are probably crazier than that, most people would say, in that book. Just crazy stories. But it's like, how it happens is back on the principles that we always talk about. It's about living these law of attraction principles, where you truly create expectancy and belief within you that,
Mhm.
there's different ways. I was going to say that it has happened, or that it will happen. Because there's some people, and I think a lot of people interpret Neville's advice where it's like, well, you believe it has happened. But also, it's been proven, and psychology shows that it can be just as powerful and easier for many people to say it will happen, but to have the feeling, to go back to the feeling day after day, night after night, of it already happening. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, walking through New York City and it's like there's palm trees like Barbados is a pretty weird image. And that's like what Neville says, right? But
Yeah.
you don't necessarily, it's not going to be like that for a lot of people, is what I'm saying. It's going to be more like you're walking through the New York City, you're seeing the buildings, but you're also seeing images of Barbados. And every night you're going to sleep, drenching yourself in the feelings of already being there, and saturating
Exactly.
yourself with the feeling to such a degree that it almost feels strange that you're still in New York. And there's this weird time sense thing that happens.
Yes.
So, I mean, Neville's so great. We've talked about him before, Clea. Like we both love him. And it's just, I appreciate his stuff more when I see it in the context of other approaches. When I see it in the context of someone like Joseph Murphy's stories, which are more like, you just do affirmations and feel it as best you can for a couple
Yeah.
months, maybe, and something happens, where it's not quite as dramatic. Neville's very dramatic. And that drama, that dramatic element, can be tough to bring out night after night, day after day, while
Yeah.
evoking the feeling can be far easier using other methods sometimes, such as affirmations, or
Right.
journaling, or speaking out loud to yourself. So it's just playing with whatever technique works best for you. You've had success with Neville's techniques, and you're very loyal to him. But I
Yeah.
think an issue for a lot of us who love Neville is becoming overly loyal to his techniques. And one thing I always liked about his teachings is he said, test it out and see if it works for you or not.
Right.
And there's so many different techniques like that. So yeah, does that help at all, clarify anything?
Yeah.
I would definitely say listen to that podcast episode, Come Out of the Graveyard, too, because it gives more context, I feel like, when you listen to that too.
Yeah, it does. It does. It makes a lot of sense. I'll check it out. And it's just been weird for me. Like, because it's like, and I hate to say it, but it's like it's so easy for me to like feel bad about something small. like, but it's hard for me, like when I'm trying to like maybe feel something good, it's kind of difficult. For example, I had a cousin, like this is really beating me up, and like recently he had a wedding and I wasn't able to go because of what's going on. I'm in a different state.
Mhm.
And it's so weird. I never had a dream about him, but that night I had a dream about him, and it just felt like he was just so disappointed in me. And it's so weird. And it's like it kind of confuses me because like I never dreamed about this guy, but it's like, man, it's really been put me in a cycle. So
Yeah.
I'm fine. It's just
Well, all I would say though is just come out of that cycle then. Don't let that dream be your master.
right.
You know, I mean, and that's like, it's emotional, and there is a feeling perhaps of, certainly a feeling of sadness that you're not able to attend, and you know, perhaps some deep, you know, deeply rooted stuff is coming up because of this. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are God,
Yes.
so you control it.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Always love talking to you. Thank you.
God.
Any other, Khalid, did you have any follow-up questions to that too? I don't mean to cut you off too, in terms of,
Actually, yes, I do have another question. Okay, I like what you guys were talking about with the eye, and about like it's this smaller eye, and then you got this larger eye. My question about that is, what was going through my head when you guys were talking about it? I was just pretty much imagining like the smaller eye is the one who's like pretty much gardening. Like you're the one who's like choosing what to like believe in or whatever. I don't know. Then you got this larger eye because I was in the same position as the one guy, the last guy that was just asking you questions, and I kind of felt like him is like I haven't manifested shit. So it's like it's not even about me. It's like it's really something like I got to take myself out of the picture and let things happen.
yeah. Yeah, the more we take ourselves out, usually the more success we have.
Yeah, and, and it's weird because I kind of felt good when he said that because like when I started thinking about myself and I just thought about the larger I felt good instantly. So
That's the golden key right there. I mean, I suggest everybody on this call to read that Emmett Fox essay again. It's 2 pages long, The Golden Key. And it's just whatever your problem is, take your focus, take your attention off of the problem and place it on God.
thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Richard, I think you were next. You had a question?
I do. Thanks for the seminar, Tim. I've really been enjoying your stuff since I came across you a few months ago. And
Thank you.
I like your whole idea of relaxing. It's strangely enough, it's something I've discovered I don't really do very well. And so trying to work with God's presence within is keep trying to do something, you know.
Yeah.
And I've had one of my teachers said to me a couple years ago, I always get ahead of myself. And I guess that's true. So what you've been saying here over the last few months, you really got me turned on to Joseph Murphy. And for me to let go, this whole idea of drenching ourselves in something, because I find my subconscious is constantly putting out a whole bunch of crap all the time, right? And so I've got to change what's going on there. And so I've been doing his 52 weeks of affirmations, which is quite a fascinating process. It's all geared to changing what's going on a regular basis. And then you turned me on to your book, Wild Calm, which I thought, man, that is such a wonderful book. How to just start to be childlike and just do whatever the hell you want someday, get your mind going off so you don't get stuck. So I don't get stuck in myself. And that sort of fit in very nicely with the 5-minute finance book of yours and the QA thing, which I've been using QA now for a couple of months. The basic,
Yeah.
I'm feeling, every day and every way I'm getting better and better. And I do that religiously. And I find for myself is I need to do that to try and let myself just connect with the God within, because otherwise I'm stuck in my eye,
Mhm.
So I've got to sort of reprogram myself, let myself calm down and relax. So I really find your stuff absolutely delightful and fantastic. I've had to make a lot of changes in my life. I've been treated for prostate cancer for a year now. And the medications have really fogged up my brain. I've gone back to university to do my PhD in metaphysics. Yeah, my short-term memory has disappeared on me. So I've had to learn how to relax, had to take it easy. And so your stuff and the way your books direct to different authors has really been a blessing, man. I got to tell you, it's been fantastic. So thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, again, this is really another reason I love the podcast is because we are just exploring different avenues we can take, right? It's not like we have to do it this way. We have to do it this way.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. And there's like so many good teachers in terms of this stuff that you can bring into it. Like for me, I was always into the Eastern, like mystical, non-dual stuff.
Yeah.
And then I got into the law of attraction stuff, and like, it's just, there's so much good stuff that you can marry all that stuff together however you want, and not a lot of people do, honestly. But if you have an open mind, as you obviously do, Richard, I mean, you just take what you want and you can just play with it, which is really, really, just practically makes a lot of sense, I think, to probably everybody on this call, just doing
Yeah,
that.
I've been, I never liked the law of attraction. After watching The Secret, I thought, oh, what a bunch of hype. And I tried to work on that stuff for some time and got absolutely nowhere.
Sure.
Oh my God. And so somehow I can't remember how I came across you. I was looking up some author and I came across one of your books and I started reading your stuff and went, oh man, this guy really knows what's going on. And so I found it worked, tied in very beautifully with my shamanic practice.
Yeah.
It's shamanics and the metaphysics, because it's all going for the God within. So we're all connected, right? And how do we let go and let that happen? So I find your stuff is such a blessing because you help us, at least help me, go down a whole bunch of different pathways and check out different authors and different ways of doing things. And it's easy. You don't make it a big deal. You just make it like, go check this out, check this out. And I love that. I just love that.
That's important to actually emphasize. Just I know I give a ton of like book recommendations and different people to check out. And I don't ever want people to feel like, oh, look at this, look at like I have to do it. Sometimes I send emails to people when they ask me a question. I recommend 6 books.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm saying read those 6 books in the next week. It's just in the next 6 months, if you have time, you might want to glance through all 6 of those books or whatever, because there's just different pathways. And it's not like one way. It's never like read these 6 books or read this one book. It doesn't matter, and for some people, I mean, really they just need to find one good law of attraction technique to work for them, and it can change their life. And like that can be a different thing for each person, but just one technique, remember that. So like you might look at 20 different books and there might just be one thing, 5% of the books you read, that something that really hits, but that one thing can genuinely change your life. So that's just a really good way, I think, to look at it. Thank you.
So thank you.
Stacy, I think, or
Yep. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I don't know if this will morph into a question or not. I just it's just kind of serendipitous, I guess, that I saw this email about 20 minutes before. and, but the whole, like, I mean, I've been working with the manifestation stuff. I got into Neville. That's how I came across you. And with the whole, just relaxing into stuff and has become more and more deeply rooted, I guess, is the best way to say it. And it's that the feel, I stopped thinking so much. Even if I do a manifestation practice, I've been doing the Wayne Dyer meditations in the morning, but that's been more of like a, for like, well-being and whatnot, not so much on outside stuff. But in any case, but I still thought it's that rather than thinking, I really just dropped into feeling, and one of my favorite teachers, I don't know if you're familiar, non-dual, Adyashanti, I remember years ago reading something of his, and he said, whatever you want, be that. And that's just really sitting now, because there's no, I compared it today on a post I was doing a community I'm on, and I said, it's more authentic than the fake it till you make it thing. Because fake it till you make it, I think, brings up that anxiety that like, oh, I got to be really intense and really, okay, now I have to go out and be this person or feel this way. It was really just a simple, effortless, if I want to be healthy, I'm going to be health. If I want to have more well-being, I'm going to be that, and just kind of, I was able to sink into it, and let a lot of stuff, and let a lot of other stuff kind of fall away. Like, and speaking of, my little I, which I understand is, the whole ego thing, but it's also where we have our decision for free will, is that with the practical things, it's like my situation isn't great with my living conditions, with my finance, so you get panicky, you get that, but to turn it around and say, well, instead of trying to grasp it from the outside, we can't manifest from the outside. It's got to be, it's like you have to know it's already there. And so if you start to be that, abundance, start to be that and just sit in it, it's, for me, the hardest thing I deal with, and maybe this is where a question is going to come up, is the trust issue. I still get like, all right, this feels good. My inner wisdom is telling me this is the right way. But meanwhile, how's the electric going to stay on in 3 weeks if such and such doesn't come in? So that's kind of, all right, I knew I was going to get somewhere. That's kind of what I struggle with, is I understand that part is the little me, and it's just all that crap, that conditioning. I get it, but it still affects me. It's still, and I wonder if it's not kind of maybe blocking or just becoming more of a stumbling block. I guess it's hard.
I really feel you there. I have a feeling, no promises, but I have a feeling I'm going to be discussing this more in the coming weeks and months, and maybe even writing on it. I will say, the podcast episodes where I talk about faith and H. Emily Katie talking about faith, that's directly dealing with what we're discussing right now.
Okay, cool. I'll check those out.
This is like a huge issue for most people, myself included, virtually everybody. Manifesting, a lot of traditional manifesting circles, law of attraction circles, they don't even want to talk about this, because this is like the real ugly shit. Which means we want to talk about it.
And
it's there's a lot that can be said, and at the same time, it's one thing to understand, or to keep in mind, an approach you can take, Stacy, is that basically when you are feeling something good, right? When instead of giving effort to be something, faking it to make it, when you feel effortless and feel it to be so, or it will be so when you're resonating with that energy, for lack of a better word, right? Better term.
Yeah.
It's energetically, if you want to say that, or psychologically, in your imagination, it has already happened. It's already a real thing. It's already manifested. Like literally you feel it already having manifested in your mind.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this practice can be staying that and trusting that
Yeah.
and knowing that all the shit is going to come up, and staying with the faith, knowing that asking and receiving are the same thing. And that if you stay with it and don't deny it, but stay with it and let all the emotions come up, and they're going to come up when it's a big thing in your life. If you're afraid about the lights being turned off, or if it's a health issue or a serious, whatever issue, relationship issue with somebody, you let that stuff come up and you give more credence to your feeling of being that already, that you already literally have. And if you do that for long enough, things do shift. They shift, and it's not something you can explain. Kalia, earlier you're asking about like the Neville thing in terms of like walking in New York like it's Barbados. That's like this. Like this is like not advanced, but like the stuff they do not talk about like in beginner manifesting discussions, because it's basically like everything externally is telling you this is not so, and you're saying fuck it, it's so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you just keep going.
Right.
One thing, some people that I've liked who've talked about this really well that are modern, that I've gotten into recently or relatively recently, are a couple basically like female money mindset teachers. Amanda Francis, I don't know if anybody's heard of her. She wrote a book called Rich as Fuck. It's a popular book. It's a recent book called Rich as Fuck. Don't let the title throw you off. Amanda Francis talks about this better than just about anybody I've ever read, modern or old, about feeling totally uncomfortable and just staying with the feeling of it being real anyway. Another person who talks about this really well is Katrina Ruth. She has a bunch of ebooks. Both Amanda Francis and Katrina Ruth have a ton of stuff online too. You can find them easily. They've got videos where they're talking about this discomfort and just letting the discomfort be there, and knowing that what they have, what they're being, is going to manifest externally because it already has manifested internally.
Right. Have you heard, are you familiar with Victoria's song, Bending Reality? I just started that book. A coach of mine. Yeah, she's really cool too, because she was like the Yale, Harvard, making all this money, and she went into this whole thing about, working with these billionaires that are unsatisfied with, everything, like they're still missing something. But her whole approach, and I just barely started the book, but it's all about going from, she says very specifically, we're conditioned to live in a state of contraction. Society teaches us that, advertisement teaches us that, schools teach us that, families teach us that. And while I had a pretty good understanding of contraction and expansion, especially more on a spiritual level, which, bleeds into our everyday life, but I hadn't put it in such a focused way on my finances, my career choices, my whatever. And it's really cool because she gets into this whole thing of how to let, basically, if you're going to live in a place of expansion, you're living in a place of relaxation. She doesn't maybe say it quite in those words, but yeah, so I just wanted to toss that in there too.
Great. Yeah, no, and again, we're mentioning teachers, anybody listening to this call, live or replay, just feel free to look at this stuff or not. These are just different avenues. But yeah, I mean, I can tell you that it's very interesting. There's a lot of female financial empowerment spiritual coaches that are that are without question, in my opinion, giving the best manifesting advice or coaching advice that you'll hear right now. Just about it, like they're just on another level compared to a lot of the more popular stuff that, you know, you see online or whatever. Yeah, but anyway, that's the process. When it gets ugly, when it gets then, and when you feel like you lack faith, understand that almost all of us have that lack of faith and that discomfort. And really, if you're expanding, it's relaxing into that discomfort, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like,
You
you know,
gotta kind of,
you got to
em-
embrace that,
I was just gonna say that, yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta embrace the discomfort and
Yep.
sit with it and just let it be what it is and not fight it. Yeah.
Right. And, you know,
Yep.
we talk about, you know, relaxing into abundance and all this stuff, but like, you know, from the beginning, when I started writing about the law of attraction and like relax more, try less and Neville stuff, I said, the irony is that we're trying to focus on just relaxing more. And we realize, oh my God, I have so much trouble relaxing. And I've heard, you know, 2 or 3 folks on this call already just say the same thing, you know, just in the last hour. That
Right.
is what we're running into. I mean, I'm a chill dude. I just want to spend most of my time relaxing, but I'm like, holy shit, what is all this stuff going on inwardly? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, and a lot of this law of attraction work, if we're getting real about it, is just coming to terms with that and learning how to relax more into this discomfort, knowing it
Yeah.
will pass and not taking it as seriously. Because if you don't
Right.
take it seriously, it stops being a problem, or at least
Well-
like this a mental problem where there's this huge story associated with it, you know?
Yeah, and if I can just jump, and I won't keep this going, but just real quick, like one thing, you know, about is the non-attachment and don't take it personal. You know, it's like the discomfort doesn't have to be a personal attack. It's like when I can kind of observe, you know, it's that thing of taking a step back and observing it as opposed to
Yes.
being locked into it. You can still say, oh, this is affecting the little I and this is affecting my love, but you can actually even not take that personal. You know, it's not, it's the whole don't struggle with the struggle. You know,
Totally.
and just
You can be
and just
you can be extreme with little I too. I mean, I love talking about that stuff. Like you can get
Yeah.
angry at little I. You can get
oh
really
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
pissed off, and that even
Oh.
that's okay. If
I
you
know.
if you don't take it so seriously. But people are like they beat the shit out of little I and they take it
Right.
seriously, and then they give up, you know. So
Right.
that's
Right.
how you don't manifest the stuff you want, you know, readily, because
Yeah.
it's like, oh shit, you know, the money's still not here, or the job is still not here.
Right.
I get
Right.
this is not working. But if you just stayed with that discomfort and let it pass and said, you know what, this is going to work,
Yeah.
chances are something's going to shift and it is going to work out in some way or the other. And it's probably going to
Right.
work out far exceeding your any type of rational explanation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I took my kickboxing bag out the other day. I unburied it and I beat the crap out of the little eye and the big eye, the super ego. It was the super ego.
You
That
transcended all
motherfucker, I'm
odds.
sorry, but that motherfucker with the you shoulda, you need to, you better, you woulda. And I just went to town on it and I said, you know what? My mentor actually said he took a flamethrower to his once. I laughed and laughed.
Oh,
So
God.
anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Great stuff. Yeah.
I'll leave it off here.
Melvin,
All right,
Melvin,
thank you.
I see your hands up. And then I also, before we get to Melvin, there was 2 other raised, or I'm just reading this. All right. So yeah, Melvin, I definitely want to get to your question, Melvin. And then if anyone else after Melvin and I talk, we can have follow-up if people have follow-up stuff to all this. Thank you. All right. Melvin, actually, I can't hear you now. Sorry. I'll unmute you. Ross.
I forgot to unmute me. My hand wasn't up earlier because, believe it or not, this is my first Zoom call.
Oh, good for you. Congratulations. God bless you. That's great. You should feel honored not to have had to do it till that.
Yeah, I'm retired. And I want to echo what Richard said. I went through the whole secret stuff and the secret to the secret and all of that. And, you know, I just put all that away and said, that's all bunk. So if I would have read a description to one of your books and it would have mentioned the law of attraction, I wouldn't have done anything with it. But I heard you on Skeptico, which is why I read some of your books and started this. And it made perfect sense to me that the real problem, or the secret to the secret, you might say, is that you have to feel good. And I hadn't really thought about that. Well, how do I feel? And one of the things I've been doing for the past month is doing self-hypnosis to become relaxed. And I feel like when I say the word relax, which is the trigger, I can relax. And, you know, I've had some bad things happen to me, as we all have in life, and you react to them and you say, oh boy, I really feel bad. And I've had some good things happen and you react to that and you say, oh, I really feel good. But I've started to do, well, I've done the Richard Dodds exercise, and I close my eyes and focus on how I'm feeling. And this sounds like a really crazy question, but I can relax. But do I feel good? Well, I know I don't feel real bad, and I know I don't feel real good, but I'm not sure if I feel good or don't feel good. So that's kind of my question.
It's a great question. It's a great question. When you do the Richard Dawes exercise, you, generally speaking, I'm not saying every time, but generally you get to that place where you're like, you feel okay, like you don't feel bad, right?
Yeah, I don't feel bad.
Okay. I would say that's good enough, is my
Okay.
short answer. I think you're doing everything quote unquote right, especially like if you're, so like, so you're relatively, so I love talking to Alex, and he's a very smart guy, and he like me kind of comes at stuff at kind of this contrarian angle a lot of the time. So your background, Melvin, is not with that much law of attraction stuff, right? Like you would say that beside, like, you haven't read like 25 law of attraction books or something like that, have you? Or
No, I don't know. I've meditated for several years. I don't now.
well, I just ask, because Dots is an interesting
I had never heard of him
Yeah.
until I heard your podcast.
right.
And you talked about the exercise, and I read that book, Money Flowing to You or whatever, up to
Right.
that point. And then I started doing the exercise. It just sounded to me like a good exercise to do, to
Yeah.
get into
So
it.
so this is, I mean, I'm loving everything you're saying, and it's a great question you asked, and there's a lot that we can unpack here, but this is the thing. So when I say feel good, it can mean many things, but generally speaking, if there's almost like a neutrality to how you feel, and an okayness to how you feel, that's an incredibly powerful place to be at. And even if it doesn't feel dramatic or feel like you're necessarily even changing anything externally by doing it, it doesn't matter. Like if it feels right to you, which is what it seems like, right? It feels
Yeah.
right to you. Just keep on doing what you're doing. And I asked about like other law of attraction books, because I feel like you're coming into like the Dots material. Like Richard Dots is one of the great law of attraction teachers. So yeah, I mean, his practice there is very, like, that's just, it's really pure. And I would maybe recommend glancing at some of his other advice, just see other books that resonate with you, that he wrote, and see if anything adds up. Because I will say, one of my criticisms, if you will, and I say that not negatively, but I agree with you, where a lot of times when I like, were you here for the meditation at the beginning of the call?
Yes.
It's very like ambivalent almost, it's like we're here, right? We're just open, we're here. Dots, I think, in my opinion, overdoes it sometimes, where like, you have goosebumps welling up and there's all this good, like it doesn't have to be like that. It can be more neutral, in my opinion. And Dots, in some of his other books, talks a lot about that neutrality. He talks about how being in a neutral state just allows you to flow, and flow through your life more easily. And that the more comfortable you get doing that exercise, the more you're able to see it translate into other parts of your life. It just kind of naturally starts to happen. And you can consciously play with that during your everyday life, or you can not. You can just go back to it when you do the exercise. Dissolve the Problem is another book by Richard Dotz that really, it's worth looking at. You might again find some of what the claims he makes dramatic, in the same way that he says you're going to feel good, kind of dramatic, but there's this element of neutrality there that I think you're on. There is no path, right? That's what we're getting at, really. But what you're doing, in my opinion, is a great practice, and you should not ever be worried about it feeling good. It's like, if it feels okay, that's good enough. And in my experience, if you do this for long enough, a lot of the time when we're just kind of feeling okay and we're not thinking about anything profound or trying to manifest anything or any of that big language, all of a sudden, sometimes there's just moments where it's like, oh, wow. Like I just realized something about myself. And it's like it's a significant realization. And law of attraction language is so dramatic. And oftentimes it's this more subtle, almost mundane experiences we have that are more gratifying and enriching over the long term. So I'm just so glad, first of all, that you hopped on here, and that also you're getting exposed to really some of the best law of attraction advice when it comes to like that Richard Dotz technique, like without all the, I know that you were exposed to The Secret before and all that, but it's so nice to see, now you get to see like, not like the real stuff as opposed to the unreal stuff, but the more down to earth, I'm a big hypnosis person myself. Like you can use this stuff with self-hypnosis, with just being in the moment to feel okay. And it's really, really cool. I mean, this is one of my favorite things about the law of attraction, is this mundane stuff. Huge fan of that. So yeah, thank you. Do you have any follow-up questions in regards to what I said?
No, I think that's all.
Great. Awesome. And welcome to Zoom too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I saw your message there. Okay, so I'm just looking at other people's messages. Do we have any other questions here? Yes, Richard. Yeah, and go ahead. And then after Richard talks, I'm sorry. Anybody, if you want to unmute yourself, guys, if you have a question, you can just unmute yourself at this point. That's fine too.
Melvin and you made comments about self-hypnosis. And so I wondered if you have a book you'd recommend. I mean, there's so much self-hypnosis stuff out there. Who do you follow,
I don't. I mean, I go to a hypnotherapist,
Okay.
and that's one of the better investments I've made for myself the last couple of years. If you can find a good hypnotherapist, somebody that you really vibe with, it's, in my opinion, a well worthwhile investment. I have a feeling you might kind of know what I'm going to say here. The Coué is the greatest hypnotist of the last 150 years. I
Okay.
mean, but in terms of actually, like, you're not going to listen to his recordings, although they are out there. There's actually recording of him
Really?
yeah, but it's, so in terms of like a technical thing, he has a lot of technical points that he can raise. Actually,
Okay.
the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to talk more about that. It's already been recorded. I just have to edit it. But in terms of people to listen to, or like in terms to get you geared up for self-hypnosis, I don't know. I mean, I've gone on YouTube like everybody else trying to find people and things, but in terms of like a method, I don't know, like, there's people like the Silva method, people like different ways of
Yeah.
doing it. I have no good answer for you. I'm sorry. My
Okay.
answer is that if you do happen to find someone who you think would be a good fit emotionally, energetically with you, who is a hypnotherapist, I've loved it, and
I've done it myself decades ago, but
yeah,
I'm 73 now, so I've done a lot of stuff,
right. Again, it's just coming back to what works and what doesn't,
Yeah. Okay.
One thing I will say about hypnotherapy and just hypnosis in general, aligning with kind of like what Melvin and I were just talking about, is just a lot of the time it's like going to seem very okay, like this is it. It's like what we were doing at the beginning, at the beginning of this meeting. It's like
Yeah,
a
mellow,
meditation.
just
It's
mellow.
mellow. Yeah, this is it.
Yeah,
And
just
that's
it's
it. Doesn't have to
acceptance.
be right. I mean, but
Contentment. It's just content. It's just you're content. It's not fantastic. I'm just
yeah,
here. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Stacey's saying that Michael Sealy, Michael Sealy and Jason Stevenson on YouTube. Yep, I know Sealy well. Sealy's got a very comforting voice, and Stevenson, I don't know if I know Stevenson or not, but yeah, those are some good recommendations. So yeah, that's a good question.
Cool. Thank you.
Of course. Anyone else? You can unmute yourself if you have anything else you want to
Yes.
add. Yeah, Clea.
I have I have a very complex question.
Let's end with a bang.
It's very complex. Okay. My daughter, right? Because I'm in the process of moving into my home. But okay. And I'm practicing Neville, and like it's like when I talk to my daughter, it's like she's full of like this unlimited amount of excitement and energy. Like whenever I mention anything about our home, it's like she seriously gets so excited. And it's like she inspires me in a way. And it's like, man, like I wish I could like feel like her all the time.
Totally. I mean, I have a 4-year-old daughter. I mean, I know. I mean, it's crazy. My daughter, I don't mean to cut you out, Clea. I mean, it's like is going to be doing, staying for like extended day. And like, she's so excited about staying for extended day. Like her energy level for staying for extended day is like better than most adults' energy level. If like,
Yeah.
they just won $1 million in the lottery or something like
Yeah.
that, it's just normal. Like that's the normal energy level, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So I try, like I think I kind of confuse myself sometimes, like because I try to relate, and then here I go going right back to Neville. Like I look at her and I just say to myself like man, like she's living in her wish, like she's living her wish, like she really believes it. Like she doesn't care about what's going on, like, and it inspires me a lot. It makes me want to continue to learn more about this. Well, practice this even more. So thank you a lot. And again, like I said, you're man, you're really good at explaining things. Like you just popped out there. Like when I was seeing a book, I'm like, try less, relax more. It just struck with me. So thanks a lot. I just got off topic.
Oh no, thank you. And that, you bring up a good point too. This is something I've been thinking a lot about, and this is very important to realize, is the stuff we're talking about is way, way, way out there. So you're not going to have a lot of adult role models in your day-to-day life, in all likelihood, who are going to be good role models when it comes to this stuff. For instance, I can give you the example of like finances. Like I was thinking the other day, like I was like, man, I don't think I've ever in my like real life, or at least the first maybe 30, 35 years of my life, had a single truly abundant adult role model person that I knew. And when I say role model, I just mean person I interacted with. Like, and I did real estate for over a decade. I dealt with people who were worth millions of dollars. I'm friends with someone
Yeah.
who's, worth close to $1 billion, but it's like, or whose company's worth close to $1 billion. And there's still lack there, like legitimate
Yes.
lack, and so we have to not just take a step back, we have to take like 6 steps back to even begin to process that. Like, because the law of attraction or Neville or whatever is popular, but it's like, if you're getting way out there, like the way Stacy and I were talking about having faith and like you're feeling like all this stuff's coming up. The reason all this stuff's coming up is because no one's fucking doing this stuff in your life. Unless like you're in a really weird environment, a great environment, like no one, or even if you have a couple people, if you're fortunate enough to have a couple people who are into the stuff that you interact with in real life, which you probably don't, like I don't, that doesn't outnumber everyone else you meet who is lackful as all heck compared to what these teachings are pointing at.
Yeah.
And so it's like, children are the best model a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jesus line, be like children, that's not coincidental. You know what I mean? Like that dude knew what he was talking about, whether he was real or fictional. The point is well made. Like, but you see how a child behaves, that excitement level, and not that excitement level is even necessarily good, right? Because that neutrality is really good too, that Melvin and I were just discussing.
Yeah.
It's more just like they're doing their own thing, Kalia. Like you're saying, they're doing their own thing. The wish fulfilled, they're doing it. They're okay with the present moment. And we have to recognize that most of us are not okay with the present moment. And you can have millions of dollars in the bank. And I talk to these people, and I've had the pleasure, not pleasure of having intimate conversations with a lot of people, for instance, who have a lot of money. And you go, holy shit, like they're more fucked up about money than I am. And the same thing goes for relationships, health, or whatever you want to put on it, like, and that's why I always talk about relaxing, just because I always wanted to be a bum, in the sense of like, I didn't want to deal with any of that shit. Like, and so, yeah, man, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. And it's weird. I got another thing I want to say because I might take up more time, but like I'm not a bad person. Like I don't just wish the bad upon people, but it's like whenever I find out something, like someone that's like just like me, like they're not doing as good as I thought they were. It's like I kind of feel better about myself. Like you can just like relax, just stop worrying about other people.
Yeah, comparing yourself to others is useless because you don't really know what's going on underneath a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, this in these law of attraction communities and forums, people get stuck in these wormholes, these Facebook groups where they really think, oh, everyone's succeeding and I'm not, and there's something wrong with me. That is all total bullshit and totally out of context. And the real context is what I'm saying right now. I don't care if anyone agrees with me or not. Most people you meet and that you're interacting with every day are not having the success that you want to have. And it is what it is. That's not negative or positive. Like, it's just like, there's so much lack. I talk about this in the law of attraction simplified a lot. I talk about, and I would have, if I rewrote that book, I would talk about even more. I would just talk about lack all the time. There's so much lack, and so it's like, how do I deal with my own lack better? Because the more I just deal with that, my own sense of inferiority and lack, the more I deal with that, the more I get okay with it, get more clear about it, then the better I'm going to feel more of the time.
Yeah.
So don't ever beat yourself up. You're a good person. You aren't doing stupid stuff. Like, people on this call, quote unquote, spiritual people, they usually aren't like sociopaths. And then there are sociopaths like Osho and stuff like that, but that's another discussion for another day. But that's not, generally speaking, people who are, attempting to practically improve themselves and that are spiritual people are doing the best for everybody. And
Yeah.
they're trying to improve themselves so that everybody will be improved. So, yeah.
Can I throw something in really quick here?
Yeah,
Just
go ahead.
like
Say
last
something.
minute. Just Kalia, because you brought it up, it was interesting talking about your daughter that the last few times that I was doing any kind of, my meditation and manifestation practices, it hit me how serious. And I know, Tim, you talked about that earlier too, how we take ourselves too seriously and whatever. And all of a sudden I just went, why can't I actually do this and just let me just go into the deepest part of me that is joyful and be that little kid? Because that little kid doesn't have guilt around asking for a lollipop or wanting to have a new bike or whatever. And that's like, that was huge to me, that just all of a sudden I just brought that up saying, yeah, let's just be happy about this. Let's be happy about asking for what we want, So I just wanted to throw that out there because you reminded me of that and I needed a reminder. But I just thought, that might help. It's like, yeah, we got to get rid of that whole guilt thing about, so
Thank you.
just wanted to throw that in there.
Wonderful.
I appreciate that.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, it's really just, I think this circles back to, I know we're winding up here, and it circles back to our meditation at the beginning and what, I always touch upon, which is just being okay with where you're at. You don't have to judge it. Unless you judge it, it's not a big deal. And sometimes you can be like a little child, try to, really appreciate life in that energetic way. And sometimes you can just kind of be here and it doesn't feel special at all, the way Melvin and I were talking about it, kind of that more neutral way. And both are totally fine. And sometimes you're going to just feel down and out, and that's fine too, because in the eyes of God, it's all the same in a good way. It's all perfection. And we beat ourselves up and say, oh, I should do a certain thing and this person is doing this person is manifesting this. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let me see. Yeah, I think that, does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? I like to end with a whimper. come out with a bang, end with a whimper, A good night, everybody. Yeah, this was great as always. Thank you. It's really the attendees that make this what it is. We all, I always am reminded of how many wonderful questions we get when we do these things, and it always again makes me want to do them more often when I hear the questions and then get to respond to them, because there's so much good vibes. So yeah, we'll do one of these sooner than later. I will say I do have a few things planned for February that might be class based. If you're interested in them, be sure to email me, because one of them is going to perhaps fill up quickly. But yeah, we'll do one of these again relatively soon, probably. But it's been a great meeting, and yeah, thank you for joining. And let's just end by saying, be what you are and be good with that.
Cool.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, man. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody,
you.
for being on the call. Have a great night. Bye,
You as
everybody.
well.
Thank you, Tim. All right, thank you, guys.